Hey everybody, welcome. This is Paul from 4GQ TV. I'm here with I guess I don't know how to address you because I see you as B.Harrison Smith or B.H. Smith.
Harrison is fun.
Harrison.
Yeah.
I'm here with Harrison Smith, producer of many great films that I've been watching, and author of one book that's already out and another book that's coming out. So let's go ahead and get started. So Harrison, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm the director writer of Death House, Camp Dread. Wrote The Fields, produced The Fields with Cloris Leachman, Tara Reid. What else? I'm an author, and also I directed and produced The Special, which I'm very happy about, and also the recent Where the Scary Things Are from Lionsgate. And let's see here. I'm an author, as I said. I just published in May a book called This Time It's Personal, which is really a personal history of the horror genre seen through the eyes of theatrical and public experiences. It's not just a list book of, and then there was this. We have plenty of that on the internet. This was about, the experience of watching a number of these films, either in a theatrical setting or in a group setting, because that's really what we're missing and what is going away. These movies and all movies, in my opinion, are not meant to be watched on a 3x5 phone screen or a tablet or anything. They're meant to bind us culturally, and I feel that the internet has done more to divide us. Their social media is pretty unsocial. That's the way to put it. So.
Yep. And I have to say, I've watched 3 of your films in the last week and a half, and I started reading your book. I'm about halfway through. Your history and my history, as far as when we saw the movies and stuff, our ages are pretty close.
That's good. That's good.
I'm a little older than you, but I had to be like 4 years old the first time I was allowed to watch Frankenstein. The only movie monster that ever gave me a nightmare. That's why I remember how old I was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. My book was about all of that and the experiences. I just wrapped up a book on the making of 1993's Leprechaun, and I really got to a lot of people on that one. Hang on.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. The director, Mark Jones, the director and writer of the film, very excited about that. So I'm very excited about the way that book came out. That'll be dropping. The pre-order links are going up very soon from Bearmannor Media. And I'm working on a book right now on the making of The Last Dinosaur, if you remember that, with Richard Boone and Joan Van Art.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a long time ago on that one. And I collaborated with Tommy Lee Wallace, the director and writer of Halloween 3, Fright Night 2,
which is that's how you and I started trading tweets, is because I mentioned Halloween 3, and I said, it had reminded me of the end of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and you go read the book, and you go read that.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1979 is, for me, the scariest movie I've ever seen. And the reason why is because it's come true.
Yeah.
So, we are now in this world of pod people, and if you disagree with the narrative or whatever it is that anybody is espousing, they point and scream at you. It's a little bit of They Live and a little bit of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But
it's funny you say that, because I have this conversation with a good friend of mine all the time. He is all about like getting to the truth and, is it a conspiracy theory if it's true type thing. And I'm forever looking at him and going, hey, buddy, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and I know you don't really watch horror movies, but maybe you should really check out this, and this, because these are essentially what's going on in the world, and they're movies that are like 20 years old. I mean,
it's very, we're in really weird times, and that's the other thing you just mentioned about, hey, some of these films are over 20 years old, and maybe you want to check those out, because we also have a whole generation of kids that are, I'm not old enough yet to start shaking my fist saying, you kids, but they have incredible power with these things. And they're not using a tenth of it for what it could really be used for. So, you have kids that have $1,000 phones and do nothing but sit on social media. They don't know how to do a proper web search. They don't even know how to look up something. So what infuriates me when you see these stupid headlines, or especially on TikTok, because I always say it's a premier platform for morons.
Yeah.
And you have these kids that are like, oh my God, did you know that Joyce from Stranger Things was in Beetlejuice? It's like, yeah, we all knew that. And welcome to the party.
Yeah.
And, you know, all you had to do was just a simple web search and just type in Winona Ryder and it'll give you her entire filmography. You may have heard of something called Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's more than just, you know, copying and pasting to cheat on your history or English report. And with a 30-second search, they can have their answers.
Yeah.
And no one's doing this. So
I have to say, I follow you on Twitter, and I love the fact you post all these headlines, and I'm like, where does he get this shit? Where does he get
the jokes just write themselves. I don't even have to do much with them. I mean, I always knew we'd get to idiocracy. I just didn't think we'd get there so fast.
Yeah.
Big to write this. It wasn't about like, well, let me try to convince you that The Last Dinosaur is good. It's not. There are a lot of substandard effects. The script is not very good. Richard Boone is half drunk through the whole movie. You know, all those things. The acting is uneven at best, but there is a good movie in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And there are moments. But the point that I established is that we're already now on the internet. We're so quick to use the word sucks. Everything sucks. You suck. I suck.
Nope.
Your script sucks.
Yeah.
That movie sucked. The Last Jedi sucks. Star Wars sucks. Star Trek sucks. Marvel sucks. DC sucks. Zack Snyder sucks. We can go on forever on all of this. And what we're doing is that is a blanket term for ignorant people, because we're not using proper critical thinking to go, okay, I didn't like the movie, but does that mean it really sucks? Like suck, let's really be honest about the definition of suck. Suck means oral sex. That's what it means. It means suck a dick. That's what it means. And in 1990, whatever, Uncle Buck, the TV show, I think dropped it for the first time on network television, and people were outraged. It's become part of our vernacular where now even teachers in school will say, well, you know, that really sucked. Well, what you're really saying is that really sucked a dick.
Yeah.
But no one's really getting to that. And it's a very blanket dismissive term for lazy people, because sometimes there are very good things about something that's labeled it sucks. It could be the crew that worked on the lighting. It could be the production value of the film that, while maybe you didn't like the story, it's made well. Yeah. You know, that's how I feel about The Shining. Everybody goes, like, I got into it after I was on the Howard Stern show. On the way home on the train, people were like, you know, fuck you, Harrison. Death House sucked. You know, I hated Camp Dread. You don't know shit about horror. I never said The Shining sucked. Those words never came out of my mouth. What came out of my mouth to Gary Delabate and a couple others and John Hine was, I said that it is not the most terrifying movie ever made. It is not even in the top 25 of the most terrifying films ever made. It is an interesting film. It is made beautifully. The production value on the film is incredible. It might be one of the most beautiful horror films ever shot. It does have a lot of interesting things, a lot of disturbing visuals. I side with Stephen King. I felt Kubrick, in the end, was the wrong director for the material. And I felt that the casting of the film was really, really off. And that starts with Jack Nicholson, that everybody's like, oh my God, I love Jack in it. Yeah, but he's being Jack. Yeah. That's all he's doing. He's just being Jack Nicholson. He's not being the character of the novel, which the novel is really about King's battle with alcoholism and a man's descent from trying to hang on to normality and devolving down into insanity as the hotel takes his soul. Kubrick comes along and says, well, I want to make an anti-ghost story. What? That's like saying I want to make Jaws and turn it into an environmental film. No, then don't take a book called The Shining that 100 million people have read and say, okay, you all love that? Great. I'm going to turn this into something else and you're going to like it. It's well made. It's a beautiful film. There are truly some disturbing moments in the film. The soundtrack, I love. Scatman Crothers is a treasure. There's so many good things about it. And what I do believe that Kubrick really did well with the film is that he made a hotel a living, breathing thing.
Yeah.
Like the hotel is a villain in that movie. Yeah. And I think the hotel itself is far scarier than anything else he conjured up in it. The hotel is this entity. And that I think Kubrick excelled with. But by no means do I think the film sucked. Look, I saw it in the theatrical release when we were kids, and we walked out, and I wasn't the only one to hear. There were a lot of people saying, what the fuck was that? Right? Everybody thinks that The Shining was this instant box office hit. It took a while for The Shining to get where it is. It was received tepidly, I think, is being kind overall to mixed reviews. A lot of people didn't know what to make of it. Jack Nicholson, of course, you're like, okay, Jack Nicholson. All I remember walking out of it is Shelley Duvall cried a lot in the movie. Took a character from, in reading the book, Wendy Torrance was an incredibly, strong woman, resourceful, that they even use that word in the movie. Well, she's turned out to be more resourceful than we thought. Where?
Yeah.
I don't see anything like that. Where is that? I mean, okay, she locked him in the pantry, I guess. All right.
Yeah. And I kind of had that problem with when Rob Zombie did his versions of Halloween 1 and 2.
Don't get me started on that. Don't get me started
on
that.
But see, I have both good points and bad points for it. And like a friend of mine actually, because when I originally saw the first one, I was like, this is absolutely fucking terrible. I don't know why he went the way he went, but I'm not a fan. This is not a Michael Myers movie, because instead of Michael just being this shape and we don't know why he did what we did, we've essentially have given him a reason to. And quite frankly, for the first couple of murders that he committed, I was like, oh, hell yeah, they absolutely deserved it. I would have killed the stepdad too if I had the opportunity. And the sister was a bitch. Why wouldn't you? It was a good movie if it hadn't have been tied to Halloween. If he would have just been like, hey, we're going to take these characters, we're going to name them different. He could have even kept the Halloween mask and just named it like a spin-off of Halloween, and it would have been much better.
If they had done that with The Shining as well, too. Same thing.
Yeah. And, I mean, because on their own, they're not bad.
Right.
But they're not, it's not a Halloween movie, in my opinion. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's quite a few movies in the series where I'm like,
oh yeah, it's a very uneven.
There.
It's a very uneven series.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing also, you bring up, is for me as a horror filmmaker, I'll give you an example in where the scary things are. I took some shit by critics because they're like two things. Well, Harrison created these kids that are so unlikable. We sit and watch a movie for 90 minutes and not like these kids. And one wrote, that's amateur screenwriter 101. Okay, fine. You didn't like the movie. I was very conscious of all the things that were said. I knew what I was doing in setting out to deliberately make a cast of characters that are unlikable, because what I was trying to do was simply go back to that 80s formula of good kids find something, right? They find Sloth, they find E.T., they find a space alien, they find a robot, whatever it is, they find it. But they're always the nice kids. What if it was the fucking Columbine kids that found E.T.? What if it was a bunch of sadistic little pricks that found Sloth and they tortured him for days? They tied him up in that room and just tortured him, or got him to kill the people that bullied them. What if it was that? And then the other one was, well, he never provides a backstory to the monster and all that. And it's like, well, that's deliberate as well, because we actually did shoot a scene that ended up being cut that pretty much explains that the monster is an extraterrestrial, and that the stuff you see on the outside may not exactly be skin, but some kind of exoskeleton on it. So I felt that we were getting too ham-fisted. I felt we were getting too, let's explain everything. For example, as you said with Michael Myers in the Halloween, we are one click away in Halloween or Friday the 13th from the famous scientist scene in the autopsy room explaining how Michael's cells can regenerate, right? We're getting our midichlorian moment coming up.
Oh, God, no.
Okay, no. Where we're going to explain something mystical. Look, Donald Pleasance said it best in the first film. He's evil. That's all I can tell you. I don't know how the kid sits up after you shoot him 6 times. I don't know. I don't know how he survived an inferno in an operating room where he walked out and the mask was clearly dripping and melted to his face after having both eyes blasted out at point blank range, which means also his brains were blown out. And yet in the 4th film, he's got nary a scratch on him, and Donald Sutherland has a limp and a bit of a scar and some burned hand. That's amazing. But you know what? For the sake of suspension of disbelief, all right, I'll buy what you're selling.
Yeah.
But when we start going into Friday the 13th and the remake, where we're going into Jason's lair and we're seeing elements of his childhood and as he was a baby and maybe he was abused, and then we're starting to do all that, we're starting to explain way too much. And the problem is there is a demand for that because people go, I don't want to look it up. I don't want to know. I need everything given to me. It's called spoon-fed horror. Just spoon-feed me and tell me everything. Like The Shining. Look, the one thing I like about The Shining is it pretty much leaves you with some more questions than it does answers. And I respect that. That's fine. And in fact, you know, the original ending was that Ullman came to the hospital and they said they never found Jack's body. And Kubrick even felt that's probably one rug pulled out from the audience too many. And they cut that ending, literally cut it in projection booths across the country. And it ends with the photograph. Did the hotel absorb Jack? Was he always there? We don't know. Look what Lloyd said. Or Grady said, you've always been the caretaker. I like that. That's cool. We don't have to have everything explained, but we now have a generation that needs to have that. So why did Michael Myers do what he did? Well, he had an abusive stepfather. His mother's a whore. You know, he's torturing animals. He killed the sister because she's a bitch. And oh, that explains it now. Oh, okay. Michael Myers, what made him scary in the 1978 film is that Michael Myers is like a tornado. He may touch down and hit your neighbor's house and never touch yours. It was
terrifying. There was no reason. There was no rhyme.
Which is the same argument I have with people all the time. You know,
which is why I like the last trilogy they did to end the series entirely. And this is where I disagree with a lot of people where they're like, everyone hated Halloween Ends. I thought it was fantastic for a number of reasons. While I would have liked a little more Michael, let's be honest, there was more Michael in Halloween Ends than there is in the original 1978 movie.
Sure.
In the original movie, he's only on screen for less than like 10 minutes.
He's like the shark in Jaws.
Yeah. So in order for him to only be in a few scenes in the beginning of the movie, it shows him as a more human and someone else taking up his thing. And it's like, that made sense to me. Yeah, he would, of course, the person who found him would be the psychopath who has that in them. I thought it was well done. It was like, it was the end of Michael's and Laurie's story. And now it was on to the next generation to deal with.
Fans should be happy that they got as much as they did out of Halloween with that storyline because
because it could have gone
was never meant
to 5
to be.
and 6.
Yeah, it was never meant to be also that they were siblings. And John Carpenter hated that. He absolutely look. John has told me that, and Tommy Lee Wallace has told me that. It was never meant to be. In fact, the actual sequel, they knew that there would be a sequel to Halloween once it made money, was actually more akin to the plot of H2O than it was taking place on the same night. And we discover Laurie's the sister. Like I remember, look, I am one of those, and I'm on Twitter, and I wrote it even in my book. I am not a fan of Halloween 2. I think Halloween 2 was a retread, kind of let's just make some money sequel that they threw out there. It was like they wrote it while sitting on the toilet.
Well, John wasn't happy. He didn't want to make it. He wanted to make the third one. Right. That's why the third one is Season of the Witch, because he wanted to do an anthology series.
And that's why the 2018 film ignores the events of the 1981.
Yeah.
And, you know, because John said the same thing. This is stupid. This is dumb. And the only reason that Halloween 2 gets the love that it does is because it's just more of the same. It takes place on the same night. The cast is back. We all feel good. We all feel comfortable. We're all back where we were, and we're all okay. But really, in the end, what's going on is you've been duped, is really what it is. So now we create some bullshit subplot that Michael and Laurie are siblings because we just really don't have anything else to offer you.
Yeah.
You know, what else is there to do? Now, I will give credit where credit is due. I am not big on Halloween Kills or Halloween Ends, but I think they're extremely well made. And one thing that really stood out in Halloween Kills was that flashback moment to 1978.
Yeah.
Where that was well done.
Yeah, it was extremely well done. And for a moment I thought, are we going there? Like, are we gonna go there and see what happened between the cracks in 1978 and how they got, you know what I mean? Like, I thought there could be more. And I thought, wow, if you're ever going to make another one, you could actually go down a whole road and revisit this, kind of like the Star Trek reboot in 2009, where you could almost tell all new stories that we are privy to, you know, by going back into this world. Because what did Michael do, you know, in that time? And there's just, what I'm saying is, there's also this tendency now, because the internet has created us to a point where we have to examine every small piece of detail and minutia, or as my mother used to say, pick fly shit out of pepper. Because now it's like, oh, no. Do you remember in part 1, that car was parked right there, but the license plate is, oh my God, who cares?
No, when I saw it in theater and the guy who played Donald Pleasance down at the stairs talking about which way did he go, I'm sitting in the theater with some friends of mine who, one actually saw the original in theater and the other one is a huge Halloween fan as well from the 1978. And we all just kind of gripped hands and looked at each other and went, there's no way they've got footage of him from back then that they're inserting now, but it looked so good. It was okay, we need to find out how they did that, because that was just amazing.
It was amazing. And it was
a nice, well done story. They kept Michael.
Right. And what was nice was sitting in a movie again, being amazed.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Isn't it nice to be amazed again? Instead, we become so set. Well, we know how they did that. They just took, you know, CGI'd it, and they because look,
and
Harrison
I like the
Ford,
fact they used practical effects for most of it, and you could tell it was practical because those death scenes were brutal. Holy cow! I was like,
but when you look at that, when you just said those death scenes are brutal, we're looking at practicality here. Harrison Ford riding on the front of that truck in Raiders of the Lost Ark, sitting in the theater, I'm going, oh my God, his crotch is like 2 inches from that wheel. Like in real life, this guy could get his balls run over like at any time. Like there was no green screen. There was nothing there. That was Harrison Ford on the front. Now, then, granted, there could be a phalanx of people all around him with ropes and everything ready to save his ass in a second. But we don't know that because we're still sitting there at that time in theater, still asking how they do that. Okay. But in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, we know how they did it. They put him in a green screen set and they filled it in on computer. That's how we know.
Let me throw something in there for Halloween real quick. Let's wrap around real quick. I saw an interview on The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs with the guy from Blumhouse and the director of Halloween. And they said something that I liked. They said, you know, Laurie was never meant to be his sister. And it's not like he was stalking Laurie. She keeps interjecting himself into his story. She keeps getting in his way. Everything that's happened to her is her fault. You know? Because she won't leave it alone.
I wish they would have focused maybe on that more. Yeah. What I didn't hear, and I don't want to get into a critique of the new Halloween films. It's just simply we have to make Laurie, and I've noticed in most horror films or science fiction films, we have to turn the lead female protagonist into Sarah Connor or Ellen Ripley. They all must be armed to the teeth. What if Laurie, after the events of 1978, went on to be some kind of powerful corporate executive What if she went on to do something where she's running this business, something where she's the face of professionalism, and that's her mask. Behind the scenes, she is terrified waiting for Michael to return.
Yeah.
And we have a whole different setting instead of, so you don't want Michael in your life and you decide the best place to live is Haddonfield.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I question
you
that
don't move
myself.
anywhere across the planet. You could go anywhere at any time. You decide, I'm going to give up my life. I'm going to live here. I'm going to become a swamp person, basically, and a survivalist. And I'm going to live the rest of my life waiting for this son of a bitch to return. So
Yep.
I don't get that. Okay. But I get it because look, the 2018 film went right where the trailer was telling us, right? That there were no surprises. I did enjoy the first 20 minutes of the 2018 film where Michael was in the asylum and that scene where the two podcasters go and they have his mask. And I was like, oh, this is shaping up to be kind of interesting here. And then it just turned into another Halloween film.
But there's one thing they did in the 2018 film that they hadn't done before. We actually know that he killed an actual child because he kills the son of the farmer.
Correct.
And so we'd never actually, it's always been teenagers that he'd been mucking with.
Right, teenagers.
But this time he actually,
You know what, though? I got to say, though, they at least did her better than what they did to the last Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. Because, when I had heard that they were bringing back the original girl, the survivor from the first one, I was excited. I was like, okay, it'll be nice to see. I mean, granted, she wasn't exactly a Sarah Connor-esque type person, but it was like, well, let's see how they bring her into this. And then they bring her in and she's a Texas Ranger with all this training and everything. She shows up and she's alive for 5 minutes. It was like, you just built it up to where she's supposed to be this awesome person who literally went there to confront him and she lasts 5 minutes. But the dumbass kid with the phone attached to her head that can't figure out what way is up, that's supposed to be the one who survives.
Right.
I mean, that movie had so many things wrong, but that thing in particular upset me.
None of this is new. I mean, look what they did with Alien 3, right? We spent the entire movie of Aliens rescuing Newt. That's the whole point of this movie. The whole point is for Ellen Ripley to redeem herself with a child and fulfill that mothering thing because she abandoned her daughter basically unwittingly. She didn't mean to, but it happened, and her daughter is now dead. So she rescues Newt, goes through everything. We see no evidence whatsoever. And most of all, the science behind the movie. Now I'm starting to pick fly shit out of Pepper, but we make it very clear that the queen lays eggs with some kind of large ovipositor kind of thing, right? That big slurpy thing that's dropping eggs left and right. Yeah. She broke off of that to go after Ripley. Where did the eggs come from that got onto the Sulaco? Where did they come from? Other than, I don't know, they got there. Did Bishop put them on? I don't know. Did Bishop go into the nest after he got out of that tube? Did he bring eggs onto the thing? But even if he did, that defeats the whole purpose of Bishop saying through the whole movie, I'm on your side. Why would Bishop let Ripley get as far as to kill the queen alien and then nuke the place?
Yeah.
Right? So, or not nuke it, but, when when everything goes. So I don't understand then in the first 30 seconds of Alien 3, let's kill the kid.
Yeah.
Right? Let's kill her off. She's so resourceful. She's going to drown in her cryo tube. And now we're going to move on. So you kill one of the most beloved characters of the franchise, go in an entirely, which I respect Fincher. And to be fair to Fincher, the studio meddled so much with that movie. It's just, to me, I'm seeing a lot of overlayering on things. And sometimes I think as moviegoers, we've forgotten just how to have a good time and enjoy something. And that's what I'm trying to say with The Last Dinosaur, that it's nostalgia is what brings it back. No, it's not a great film. Like when I was even talking to Joan Van Ark, she went back and revisited the film. And when she came back to me, she's like, this movie sucks. She's like, I'm embarrassed. And I'm like, Joan, I get it, but you don't need to be embarrassed. It's not like you did porn. Okay. Like it's not the greatest film, but it did bring a lot of people some fun memories and a good time. And I think sometimes we've gotten so caught up in, like, for example, the last 2 Halloween films of fan service. Let's get Nurse Chambers. Let's get Lonnie. Let's get Tommy Doyle. Let's get Lindsay Wallace. None of them serve any purpose whatsoever, other than to pack them in there so somebody my age can go, oh my God, that's Lonnie. Remember when Dr. Loomis was hiding outside Michael's house and Lonnie came up and he whispered through them, that's the guy. That's the kid. And I'm sitting there like, these films are not created to win any new audiences. They're created to serve me. They're created to serve this. Now, maybe somebody will drag their kid along and say, you don't understand. When I was 14, I saw this. This is the scariest shit ever. Let me explain to you who Nurse Chambers, and the kid is sitting there on his phone going, yeah, Dad, whatever. Okay. I can look it up. All right. You don't have to explain it to me. I can Wikipedia. Oh, Nurse Chambers. Yeah. She's played by so-and-so. And she was the nurse in the 1978 and she returned in Halloween H2O. Did you know that, Dad? Right? Like, we're in a different world now. Trailers are no longer trailers to entice us. They're there to tell us everything. Now they're there to give us everything. There are no surprises. And now we even have the new gimmick of the trailer leak. So now we have, with like that Spider-Man No Way Home thing. My God, I went into that knowing everything. From just the stupid officially sanctioned leaks, the accidental leaks that just happen to get out there with studio quality and everything like that. This is all marketing, and it's disguised as a crisis. Oh my God, they leaked this top secret footage. Oh, I got to see that. Well, now the movie's in my head and marketing achieved.
Oh, they do it with music all the time
All the
too.
time.
The artists will go, please don't listen to this. And it's like, yeah, okay. So then why are you telling people not to listen to it and providing the link that it's streaming from? Honey, I don't think that's how that works.
And even old TV shows are doing it now. I think you see that if you look at me on Twitter, like I'll post, this is not a crisis. This is a manufactured crisis to get you to click on this. This is clickbait. Oh, fans are steaming at Man Balick on Jeopardy for latest controversy. There is no controversy. No. How did we get through almost 40 years of Jeopardy, and most of it with Alex Trebek, without a single scandal or controversy? Don't you think it's amazing now that a very esteemed and well-respected host who died of pancreatic cancer is gone, who lended so much class to the show, is gone, and now we just got to create endless little controversies to keep people, to keep that show in your head? Because let's face it, a lot of people felt when Trebek was gone, the show is gone. But now we're going to prove it isn't, because we're going to have this, oh, Ken Jennings said something inappropriate. They found something on his Twitter. Oh, I got to tune into that and see what that's all about. Wheel of Fortune picked up on doing it. The Voice does it. The Masked Singer does it. How many times has Ken Jeong walked out in outrage over someone being unmasked? Really? You don't go through rehearsal? You don't know what's going on? You come out there and you don't know who's coming out in those? Give me a break. Okay? None of these are surprises. This is all done. It's no different than on reality TV. Latest, everything is scripted. It's all planned out. You're the sucker that's taking the bait, hence the clickbait. And we're accepting it. That's my problem. That's what my podcast used to be about. It's like, wake up. You are being spoon-fed this garbage and you're becoming conditioned to it, and you're not questioning a single thing. I can be wrong on some things. That's fine. But we're not even engaging in that anymore. It's right away. You suck. You're a dick. You hate this. Shut you down, troll. I'm not being a troll. I don't troll anybody. I don't troll anyone who, if you loved Halloween Kills, if you loved Halloween Ends, that's what a movie is supposed to do. You're supposed to, if you enjoy it, who the fuck am I to say you shouldn't? Unless it's child porn or animal cruelty, I have no right to tell you what you can and cannot watch.
By the way, wrapping back to where the scary things are, where you were criticized for the kids not being likable, etc. I was okay with that, because by the time the end was coming around, I wanted to see.
You wanted them to get it.
Yeah. By
And
the way,
here's the thing,
I will say the one I did the kid I did like is the one who didn't live up to his name. Snack. Okay.
Snack.
He's, yeah.
Yeah, Snack. Well, I was inspired a little bit by where they went off the rails with Don't Breathe. So they open up Don't Breathe with a bunch of really unlikable kids, right? And then they do something even worse. They break into the home of a blind veteran, and then they steal his life savings. These kids need to die. Yeah. Okay. And I was waiting for it. I was rooting for the veteran. I think that's exactly what we were supposed to be doing. And I don't know if this was in the original script or the studio heads got their hands on it and looked at a cut and went, "Ooh, no, we can't do this." And instead of having the balls to make a thriller like this with the hero actually being an anti-hero, okay, we have to turn him into a sicko that keeps women in a sex dungeon and impregnating them with turkey basters. And it's like, you just dropped your balls. You didn't have to, because now we have to be like, see, you need to hate this guy. Yeah. This guy is bad. And we're going to let you know he's bad because he's doing something sexual too. And we got to make sure that he gets his just desserts. No, make the movie about this guy killing off these kids because they're shitty kids. Yeah. They're growing up in a generation that they live piggyback off their parents' work, right? How many kids have you heard? My parents are boring. They got fucking boring having you. That's how they got boring. Oh, wow. They got boring having you before you came along and fucked up their lives. They were going out and having dinners. They were smoking pot. They were drinking. They were fucking all the time. You came along, killed the sex drive. Okay, now all their resources go into you, and they're putting away money for your fucking college so you can go off and party and flunk out anyway and come back to community college. Yeah.
Wait, what if you flunk out of community college first?
Who's paying? Right. If they even go, who's paying for your cell phone? Oh, that's your boring fucking parents. Who's paying for your clothes? Oh, that's your boring fucking parents. Who bought you your PlayStation 5? Oh, your boring fucking parents. Right. No wonder they're boring. They're exhausted from having you monsters.
The reason I find that so hysterical is because Dreadpool and I only have one child. We have a little girl, tiny giant, okay, and she's 9 years old, and she's going getting to that 40. Point to where we're getting
going on 40.
Smart ass. And she's been getting these little preteen attitude angst things going on lately, and she said something to me about like, you know, you're just trying to ruin all my fun in my life. And I looked at her, I was like, girlfriend, let me explain something to you. If it weren't for you and your father right now, if I hadn't married your dad and had you, I'd be on a beach somewhere, probably drunk by now. Okay?
All children are spoiler alerts.
Yeah.
Luckily though, she's into all the stuff that I do a lot of. I run a haunted house in October, and I do a lot of volunteer work for the community with Easter and Christmas and stuff. So luckily, with me being a seamstress and doing all that, she loves doing all of the scary things. So I'm not the boring mom yet.
Right.
Yet. But it won't be until I'm no longer cool, but I'm cool right now. We
just have them like, they have this incredible technology that we pay for, and they walk around and level out. Like, for example, oh, you know, I saw, you know, the original Star Wars, and, you know, it doesn't hold up. What? Like, you don't even know film history. Like, I do believe that you need to understand how films are made, and if not, you should appreciate how they are made. I went to see many movies, even Star Wars, even Jaws. Look, even as a kid, when I saw Jaws, I didn't think the shark looked all that real 100%. In the short time that it's on screen, it was used effectively. But sharks don't have Richard Nixon jowls, okay? They don't do what they do. And most of all, I saw real sharks, how they move, and this one looked pretty stiff. But it's okay, because I love the movie. You know that people work their ass off. The script is wonderful. The actors are terrific. The direction is beyond par. So we're not making those allowances anymore for film. And it's this endless quest for realism that I feel has created a thing that I call film dysmorphia, where now when you actually, like you had said, we're actually showing practical effects and kids are going, how'd they do that? Because they're so used to CGI now that reality doesn't look normal.
That goes back to the parents, though, in my opinion, because like I started watching horror movies around the same age as you guys did. I started watching them at 5 years old. My first horror movie actually was Alien. My mom thought that that was the safest bet because in her defense, she was like, it was the safest bet because one, we're not flying around on spaceships and we don't have contact with aliens. So it was, in her mind, it was like, this is the easiest to explain. But before that, I got to see the special effect makeups and things and how they did things. And I've always loved all that stuff. So when it came time for my daughter to want to start watching things with me, it was like, okay, we're going to start with the basics, the real old movies. Like she loves Vincent Price, Haunted Hill House, Haunted Hill.
Oh,
she
love
loves
House
the
on Haunted
original
Hill.
black and white one. She has seen it in color, but she prefers the black and white one.
You're raising her right. You're raising her.
Exactly. She saw the Red Masquerade with Vincent Price.
Oh, yeah.
She's watched all those movies. So when it did come time for her to see like some of the still not new movies, but the newer movies with the practical effects, she wasn't completely blindsided. And she appreciates the fact that no, they may not always look scary, but neither does everything we do at our haunted trail and things too.
Right.
She's
She
well
understands
aware.
there's an allotment there that you make for this kind of entertainment. And look, sitting in, when was it, 2002 or 2003, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man came out, something like that, right? With the Green Goblin with Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
There were moments I'm just sitting there going, am I watching a movie or a cartoon? You know, and everybody's going, oh my God, the effects are
Green
so
Lantern was the same way. It was essentially a cartoon.
It's
with
a cartoon. I'm just watching people running around on harnesses and on green screen stages, and I'm not seeing, you know, the action that I really think that we should see. Look, and then we can even go back further. Even as a kid, look, I was never a superhero kid. I wasn't a comics kid. I appreciate them and I know their value. And I have a good friend from elementary school who is one of the most gifted artists I've ever known, who loves, my first memory of him was comics, right? He had DC, he had Marvel, he had them all. And he said, the biggest problem with comics today is that they're not being written for kids. They're being written for people like me.
Yeah.
He said, that's a problem.
No,
and
it is. It really is.
It is. So
my daughter likes to read comics and I have to read them first before I'm allowing her to. And it used to be where I could just, particular characters, obviously Deadpool. No, I'm not handing you a Deadpool comic. That's out of the question. You're too young for that. But like Squirrel Girl, by all intents and purposes, Squirrel Girl should be okay for her to read, minus the Avenger storyline thing, because that's dark. But for the most part, I shouldn't have to scan it in order to give it to her. But the newer editions, I can't let her read because they are so much darker than what they used to be.
Well, and then with darker, we've turned the whole DC universe into this dark, depressing wasteland. And I'm not even big, like I watch Batman versus Superman because just to keep up on what's going on. I'm not always down on Zack Snyder. I thought he did a wonderful job with Dawn of the Dead, that kind of thing. I'm just saying that I'm watching cartoons. I'm watching live action cartoons with so much CGI layered over that it's no longer, I'm sitting there going, wow. And now I'm just going, yeah, okay, now Iron Man's going to launch and he's going to fly around and do this. And we're going to see him plummet down. And like, we are losing the wow factor. Like, for example, to this day, I still remember sitting in Jurassic Park, the first one. And when that Tyrannosaurus broke out of its paddock, I remember turning to my fiance at the time, and I turned to her and I didn't say, how'd they do it? I said, where'd they get one? Like, that's how I felt in seeing that. Like, my
That
jaw
movie
dropped.
still
I'm
holds
sitting
up
in the theater going,
beautifully.
this is movie making. I'm
Yep.
amazed again. I'm looking, it's like I understood the over-exaggerated looks of awe in those scenes. Remember when Sam Neill and all them see the dinosaurs for the first time and they're all
that was my jaw-dropping moment. That was
but
in that movie.
I was doing that
Oh
too.
yeah, no,
Because
I was the same way. It was
we grew up with stop motion animation and suitmation, right?
Mhm.
Or if you watch The Land That Time Forgot with Doug McClure, hand puppets. All the dinosaurs were basically hand puppets in that. So we grew up with that, which had a lot of inconsistencies and flaws. And now we get this new revolutionary effect that, granted, there were still some inconsistencies there, but who am I to say? I'm sitting there going, oh my God, like, wow. And when that T-Rex broke out, I was sitting in the theater going, oh my God, this is incredible. The meshing of animatronic with CGI. And it was just, this is filmmaking. That's what this is.
I have a soft spot still for, even like in your films or in Terrifier 2 and Terrifier series and Scare Package, give me the practical effects.
Yes.
To me, I love the practical effects. The stuff they did in Hostel.
Yeah.
I just, to make me sit there go, oh, that's gross. Oh, how did they do that? Wow.
Well, Scary Things, Death House.
Cabin Fever, the original one had practical effects.
Yes.
In to this day, there has only ever been one horror scene that has ever literally made me physically sick. And I'm sure everyone knows it real well. It's the leg shaving scene. And as a woman, any woman who's ever done it, you've scraped that skin. And seeing that repeatedly, it was just like, oh my, I got it.
Yeah.
And what's worse is I was actually on a date with a guy for the first time, and he's like, "Are you sure this is what you want to see? It's a scary movie." And I'm like, I love scary movies. This is gonna be great. It's gonna be amazing. And then as soon as that scene came on, I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta go.
Yeah. But look, that's what horror is supposed to do. It's supposed to elicit a reaction. That's it's just amazing. Like when you were saying about the Grateful Dead thing at the start of this episode, when I premiered The Fields in my hometown, afterwards they had a Q&A, and the theater was pretty packed. It was like 1,300 people in this theater. And I wrote about this in the introduction of my book of This Time It's Personal. And this woman stood up and she ambushed me. That's what she was trying to do. She was going to give me a gotcha moment, is what it was. So she brought her 11, 12-year-old girl to see the movie. Now, if you've seen The Fields, there's no blood, there's no gore. It's just creepy and weird. And it's a mixed bag for me. It's I didn't direct it. And the script, if you ever read the script, is very different than the movie that got made. But that was the director's prerogative. I think it's always fair to say that if I had directed it, it would have been a different movie. It's not the way I would have done it. But it did well. It's been well received and blah, blah, blah. And so there you go. But this woman says that she's like, aren't you embarrassed by this movie since it's about your childhood? And I'm just standing, because, it's my gotcha moment, right? I'm on stage, 1,300 people are around me, many of them my friends and family. And I'm the small town kid, right? Who went on to make a Hollywood movie. And I'm just staring at her. She's like, and you're proud of this? You put this up on the screen? And I just want to tell you that my daughter said to me before this movie was over, she could never look at a cornfield again because of this movie. And so I'm standing there and I'm just like, okay, lady, everybody, you're a victim, of course. And I said, well, number one, didn't you see the poster when you came in? Like there are posters all over the lobby. There's a giant poster. There was a marquee poster on an easel out there. It doesn't look like a family film. That's one. Even the tagline is be more afraid of the living than the dead. I don't know if that's not a clue, but okay, so you got past that hurdle. So then I said to her, I said, you know what? All fair questions. Can I ask you one first before I answer you? And she's like, yeah, go ahead. And I said, do you like Disney? She's like, we love Disney. And then she went on about, Disney, blah, blah, blah. And she said, and I said, and ABC, by the way, is owned by Disney, the whole Disney Go and, that whole thing about what is it? I forget what it was called at the time. Oh, ABC Family is what they called it. And they had that show, The Secret Life of the American Teenager, where I said, do you watch that Disney show, that wholesome family show?
Teenage pregnancy,
pregnancy out of wedlock,
youth, drug use and all that. Yeah.
I said, yeah, I said, that's definitely a different kind of family, a new kind of family for sure. And she's just staring at me. And I said, let me tell you something. I said, there are two honest genres in film. One of them is horror and the other one is porn. And they are both created to elicit a response. They are to stimulate. Both are created to stimulate. They don't have agendas. They don't have political agendas, religious agendas, moral agendas. They're not out to tell you what to think. The good ones don't, at least. It is simply to scare the shit out of you. That is the point of horror. It is to scare you, creep you, whatever it's going to do. It is to elicit a response. That is it. No different than a comedy. A comedy is to make you laugh. That is the point of a comedy. And she had no idea what to say to this. And I said, I am not embarrassed about anything. There were really no counselors at the time for me to go to. And I came from a house that also, had mom and dad fighting all the time. That, living with my grandparents during that time and people coming out of the corn and doing that probably wasn't so scary. So what I'm saying is your perspective is definitely askew from mine. And you are not on some, higher ground or higher moral level because you've decided to stand up and express some kind of parental outrage. The movie is over 90 minutes long. You had plenty of time to leave. There were moments in this film that made it very clear the direction this movie was going. There's no sex in this movie. There's no nudity in this film. There is no violence. There is not a drop of blood in this motion picture. So your kid can't look at cornfields. I don't know what to tell you. Let's quickly go back. All of us can relate to this. Let's go back to the video revolution, way before the internet. Let's make the screen go wavy and let's go back in time to about 1974 when VCRs were about to become a thing, when the Betamax was coming along. And HBO was already around, cable was already around, and people were amazed at that. I remember having friends who had cable. I'm going, they're saying fuck on TV. They're not allowed to say fuck on TV. I'm seeing tits. You're not allowed to see tits on TV, but we're seeing that. That was amazing enough. Then they create a machine that can record what you're doing on TV. Like you can record something. I don't have to miss my Godzilla movie on Saturday. Well, the problem was we were too broke to get one. However, once VCRs started becoming plentiful and the beta VHS wars were going on, you needed content. And instead of the heads of the 5 families in Hollywood getting together and sitting down and saying, we should probably really think about what we dump out onto video and hold back some of the really good stuff for future generations to watch things theatrically and know that these movies are special and the only thing you can see them on is a movie screen. But nope, there was a lot of money to be made and they started dumping shit left and right. We're getting The Godfather. We're getting Gone with the Wind on deluxe 4 cassette box sets. We're getting everything. And here's the best part. They're dumping all this stuff. And here we are just consuming these hamburgers rolling off the assembly line that we suddenly realize we're kind of eating some shit here, because then we start understanding about pan and scan. We start understanding about really washed out transfer prints because televisions had not caught up yet. And then Sony creates the XBR and we suddenly start getting high resolution televisions, high definition televisions. And then we start getting something called the widescreen TV, the tube TV, the Sony XBR. I know as a teenager, I sold them in a video store. Now, all of a sudden, I'll never forget the first time I saw Jaws in a letterbox format and not pan and scan. I was watching a third of the movie the whole time for years. I never knew it. Even on TV, I'm watching this much, a blown up picture, and I'm missing all this other stuff on the sides. 2/3 of the movie is gone. So now these studio execs are dumping all this, just like politicians. They're making their money. The money's rolling in. It's like the gold rush in Hollywood. And then they discovered you can release special editions. You bought Star Wars in 1981 for $90, $100 on that crappy 20th Century Fox box, crap label. Well, now we're going to release a special edition where it's widescreen and in stereo, and they just keep doing it. The money's rolling in. And then as we get to DVD, the DVD is another gold mine. Independent filmmakers, it's their heyday. Now they can go to a film festival, and some studio will buy their movie for 3 times what they shot it, because they know they are guaranteed video sales on DVD and VHS. They will get their money back. They will make a profit. The money's just pouring in. And then one day after the computers start arriving and the internet arrives and everybody's on AOL and we're having dial-up modems and Netscape and all those things that are going on, we hear of a word called Napster. And suddenly now we don't need to buy CDs anymore. Now, granted, we still have dial-up modems, and man, it's a bitch to download that 8 megabyte song, but we're doing it. And then the cable modem comes. And then that's when I realized, when Napster came along, I thought it's only a matter of time before, number one, the bottom falls out of the music industry, but the bottom's going to go out of the movie tub as well. It's going to drop, because once that technology catches up, that we can start swapping high quality video files, you watch people start doing just that. And suddenly that's what happened. And DVDs went away. Blockbuster died. Hollywood Video, gone. Everything is dropping left and right. Netflix is coming up the ranks. Suddenly now we're hearing of things called streaming channels. And Hollywood just let it all happen. Nobody sat back and said we should probably pump some brakes here. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody prepared for this technology. Nobody sat down with Bill Gates or Zuckerberg or any of them and sat down and said, look, we know the genie's out of the bottle, but what can we do here to help preserve our industry? What could be done? I don't know what could be done, because here's the thing. Those fucking conversations never happened. So then everything fell apart. The bottom fell out of the tub. The movie industry goes into free fall, because nobody's watching movies in theaters anymore. Why do I want to go when I'm watching some asshole sit on this the whole time with their bright screen and they're talking on their phones and their phones are going off? Because you ever notice you always have that one asshole in public who has the old time phone ring, and it's the loudest goddamn ringtone anywhere. It's the old dial spin, rotary phone ring sound.
Yes.
That's the loudest goddamn ringtone anywhere. It's in an airport, it's in a movie theater, it's in a restaurant, and they're always slow to answer it, right? You're just sitting there going, would somebody answer the goddamn phone? And we have people talking in theaters. I know, I ran a movie theater for 8 years. I know exactly what goes on in those black boxes. So now people sit at home, they watch them, they skip to the good parts, 30-second intervals, right? We're just skipping to the good part. We're not even watching the full movie anymore. We're not listening to the full movie anymore. We're not understanding character development or plot development. We're doing nothing. But the former studio heads now get on the internet and on Drudge Report and proclaim that Hollywood is over. It is all over. The movie industry is dead. We proclaim it dead. When they walked out with their severance packages and their big bonuses and their stock options, and after they fleeced their libraries and dumped all their titles into the dustbin and into the landfill just to collect those fees without anybody having a long-term plan. No one did this. And now here we are, we're a fucking mess. We have too much content. Any independent filmmaker will tell you that you're not going out and taking your $30,000 movie and selling it for 500 grand. Those days are over, because now streaming channels can get their content anywhere. Right? Now we can go anywhere to do it. Shutter's doing their thing. But look, from what I understand too, Shutter's got its share of financial problems. Because why? Well, you got some other upstart streaming channel. Somebody will go here. Or most of all, someone will go, I'm not even going to pay you for it. I'm just going to torrent. I'll just torrent all my movies and that'll be it. Or go to Plex or Cinema HD. All my movies are pirated. Every single one is pirated. Right? And
well, like a friend of mine was saying, he hasn't gone to the theaters since before the pandemic, because since the pandemic, they released the movies in the theater, and then literally that same day, they're on streaming services. And it's like, why am I going to go for just two people to go see a movie without snacks for just it's like almost $40.
Exactly.
And when I can spend $10 at home and I don't have to buy the $50 snacks and everything else, and I can pause it to go to the bathroom or whatever I gotta do. So a lot of them are losing money that way. And it's like, how much longer do you think the theaters are going to be able to stay open when they're charging so much
back in 2007, 2008, you can look this up. It was either one of those years. Spielberg and Lucas gave an interview, I think it was either to the Hollywood Reporter or Variety, lamenting the death of the big screen, movie. Everything's gone to streaming. Everything's going to television. Everything's going back to TV. And I thought, you are the guys that helped pave the way for this. Just so you know, you created the blockbusters. You created the must see it now. I got to do this. And now you've created, because Spielberg, I think it was Spielberg said, eventually what will happen is movie theaters will become like Broadway. And that is, you will pay $150 to see some big screen epic movie, but otherwise you'll just watch everything else at home. So we're kind of seeing that now, right? AMC is charging more for certain movies. We're starting to see those prices tick back up, a $40 price tag for two people to go to the movies. We are kind of seeing the dawn of the Broadway ticket on the theater screen. While other content retreats back like waves from a beach, and we're going back to TV, we're going back to streaming, because now we have our 85-inch LEDs. We can do all of that. And here's my point, what Carlo was saying, and that is, there were people out there at the beginning of all of this who either didn't have the foresight to see what was coming, which is sad, because that's what being an executive is all about. It's about the long term, the big picture down the road. And none of them, and especially Barry fucking Diller, who likes to proclaim everything dead, and yet got his, and walked out one of the wealthiest men in the world and part of his wealth coming from the exploitation of these pictures that Star Wars should have never gone to home video. None of them should have ever gone. E.T., Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, none of them. Lawrence of Arabia. There are certain films like they preserve in Congress, right? The congressional libraries preserve these films. Hollywood should have said, no, hands off, and got behind the emerging Silicon Valley gods and said, look, eventually they're going to leak somewhere. Someone's going to go in the movie theater. I mean, look, when I went to college at Penn State in 1985, I saw a bootleg of Return of the Jedi that somebody recorded with some crappy big old camcorder. They probably sat on their shoulder. And I watched Return of the Jedi in luxurious, almost black and white, washed out color with shitty sound. But that was unique. There was a way to at least bring a balance to all of this. And none of them did it. And now they're all standing back and they're going, good luck. Indie filmmakers, good luck. I know for a fact, Death House was supposed to get theatrical release. It got some theaters. We were supposed to get over 700 screens. And the problem was, when it came out, we had to go up against The Last Jedi, or we had to go up against Black Panther. Ooh. What do you think, what do you think a theater chain is going to do? Regal Theater is going to go, let's see, we have 8 screens in this place. We're going to give up 1 screen for a movie that has almost zero marketing.
names that really haven't been relevant since Ronald Reagan's been in office. And it's a horror movie on top of it, releasing in the early spring. No, we'd rather put Black Panther in that theater. And I know this because that's what I did when I booked movies. We would rather go with the tried and true. We know that if that's a 100-seat theater, and even if we get 30 people in that thing a night, that's still covering the bills. And most of all, people don't go to a multiplex to find something to watch. They already know what they want to see. The only time they go to another movie is if their movie is sold out and they drove 20 miles to get there. And it's like, fuck it, we might as well watch this. We're here. That's it. But otherwise, no one goes to a multiplex and goes, what's that about? I wonder what that is. No, you saw it on TV, you saw it on the internet, you read it in the paper, you saw it somewhere. I want to see that movie. I got to see that movie. Nobody went to Jurassic Park not knowing what it was about.